I started leveling through Battle for Azeroth with low expectations. Despite that, somehow, I am still disappointed in the experience that I had. This is the 7th expansion that I tested in my journey to find the best one for leveling. I even did Cataclysm twice to make sure I experienced everything it had to offer as a chromie time. This is the first character where I thought about quitting before finishing my leveling. For the sake of fairness, I did not. I trucked on through and hit level 70, begrudgingly and with great disappointment. This leveling experience is so bad I am looking forwards to Shadowlands, because at least that has Revendra. I have done my best to be as positive as possible in these videos, but this is the first time where I can confidently say, here is why you should not level a character through Battle for Azeroth. I will still give it the same rundown as all the rest, so let's start with... Nothing is ever 100% bad. Well, no video game is ever 100% bad. The issue is, the part of BFA we are looking at is the worst aspect of the expansion. Kinda like how Warlords of Draenor questing was really good and it had really good raids, but everything in between was not really up to par. BFA is touted as having pretty decent raids, but its leveling is just not it, especially on the Alliance side. Battle for Azeroth was going to be my honeymoon period for World of Warcraft. I played a decent bit of the End of Legion. I didn't raid or anything, but I did unlock 2 of the allied races for the Alliance while I waited for BFA to release. I remember that there was incredible hype around the expansion, until it actually did release, and I ended up not even getting my character to max level. Look, it takes a lot for me to not like something. It takes a lot for me to get bored. Just look at some of the videos on this channel. Most notably, I spent an entire month and multiple characters to try and level using only exploration. Keep in mind, this was before Earthen and the War Within released. My final character had 24 hours of playtime, and it was my 4th attempt. Even then, I did not get bored of that challenge. But BFA has gone and done it, for a second time. I got bored of it when it released, and I almost threw in the towel this week. I do have some nice things to say about it, but it's the same kind of stuff that you would say at a pizza party for a kid's sports team after they lost every regular season game. I can tell that the devs put effort into crafting these leveling zones. The theming is great, the Horde and Alliance finding new allies to recruit for their cause, launching attacks on each other's islands, getting enough of a taste of the zones there, while still staying separate enough that each side gets a unique run-through. But it was just poorly executed. I'm going to explain this mostly from the Alliance leveling zones because it has the most egregious problems. The Horde zones are generally seen as done better, more enjoyable, which I have to agree with. Vol'dun itself is a wonderful zone. I loved playing through it on the Horde side when unlocking Vulpera. But let's isolate the 3 Alliance zones for the purposes of my criticism. The entire Alliance side of the campaign is who can out-corrupt who. This area has corrupt officials running a weapon smuggling operation. The coast down here is filled with sirens that have been luring sailors over and corrupting their minds with their songs. The exact same thing is actually happening over here too. And oh hey, here's a big pirate town that the weapon smugglers have corrupted and taken over. This whole area has wildlife running amok because the recent immersion of Azerite has flooded the forests and hills with rampaging elementals, corrupting the very land itself, which is exactly what's happening over here as well. The entirety of Drustvar is filled with witches, hexes, and darkness, turning citizens into pigs, thralls, and undead, which also, you guessed it, corrupted the land itself, so now the wildlife is going crazy. But at least the sea life is safe from all this, right? Wrong. The sea life has it the worst, both animal and sailor. Because one of the old gods is back, and its minions are turning the waters into an absolute mess of raging sharks, angry drowned, and giant mind-sucking squids. If the sirens weren't enough of an issue, now all the workers at the docks have been taken over by the mind control squids, corrupting their minds and completely throwing this entire region into chaos. And don't even get me started on the sea cult over here, who used to be the pride mages of the Colteran Navy but have now fallen to darkness and are working to undermine the Admiralty. Literally everywhere on this island is some kind of corrupting force, and it's the same routine for dealing with them. Infiltrate the infiltrators and purify from within. You infiltrate the pirates, the sea cult, you infiltrate the sea itself to destroy eggs and effigies, and if you think it gets any different when you go and invade the Horde areas, no, it doesn't. The Alliance Vol'dun campaign is helping the natives fight back against a faction called the Faithless, who have turned against their Loa because their military leader staged a coup. Everything you do here is the same after the same after the same. Even honey is corrupting the wildlife. Honey elementals, honey-crazed bears, angry bees. Isolated, these concepts are so interesting, but they aren't isolated here. The way you deal with them isn't unique, and all it ends up looking like is a moldy house. Beautiful on the outside, conceptually beneficial, but when you get inside, it's all rotten. You know what this reminds me of? School projects. The teacher said, "Alright class, this year we are making something about corruption." Then at the end of the year, all these groups came together to share their work. And it's seemingly different because these separate groups worked on it, but in the end they all just heard, "Make something about corruption," and out pops BFA. It's also dense too, not just speaking on the fact that this all takes place over 3 zones, but it's about how the zones are constructed too. I have not felt this claustrophobic when leveling, ever. I played a fire mage this time around. The amount of times I accidentally pulled something is just about as many times as I intentionally pulled something. Every area is filled to the brim with mobs, both hostile and neutral. None of the zones have a chance to breathe. Normally there are clear paths you can run through even in hostile areas, but when you reach a questing area in BFA you get swamped with enemies, which might not necessarily be bad in everyone's eyes, but I can confidently say it gets annoying, especially when its tuning is so high. This is the first expansion where I actually felt weak. Every previous one I tested I could confidently solo elites while leveling. Now I'm playing a mage and I can barely even down the easy ones. Even the normal enemies are breaking my barriers in 2 hits. And let me tell you, there are a lot of quests that have you hunt down elites. I don't think I ran into a single quest hub that didn't have at least one "this big enemy is causing a problem, go deal with them" quest. Shout out to BFA for another first. I actually left some quest lines because I didn't like doing them. Just stopped in the middle of it. Never in this series have I done that before. The variety in BFA is just bad. Again, I see what they were going for. It's a cool concept, but in practice, they fumbled the ball pretty hard. At least it's not the slowest leveling, I can confidently say that. The speed is fine, I got to level 70 in 10 hours and 13 minutes. But for other expansions, I always saw the time to level as, dang, that's fast. In this case, I'm more thankful it's not slower. I was actually surprised it only took me that long because it felt much longer than it actually did. Thankfully, the zones are so dense that you only need 2 of them to hit level 70. If you do all the quests they have to offer, that is. So I can't give it an astronomically low score, but I can still give it a 4 out of 10. It is the worst, only Shadowlands has a chance to be worse than this, but that's not saying much. The fact that I actively disliked questing through BFA says enough. I still got through it, yes, and the Horde zones are better crafted, but they aren't amazing. Just good enough to keep it at a 4. If we were only talking the Alliance zones, easily a 3 or even a 2. I also have to give BFA some props for having the best treasure chests. They give about half a quest's worth of XP, at least most of them do. Some just don't give XP and others give around 500. Despite how long it was, this wasn't the only section I'm grading this expansion on. Let's see if it gets any better with... The BFA dungeons were the first ones to be designed with what they learned from Legion Mythic Plus. The biggest problem with the post-Legion era dungeons is that they were specifically designed for something other than leveling, whereas what came before was at least designed with a mix of leveling and endgame gearing in mind. The BFA dungeons are Mythic Plus focused first and leveling dungeons second, if at all. Eventually I'm going to take a closer look at all these expansions dungeons. The anniversary event threw me for a loop. When I started this series, they just implemented the permanent rotating time walking dungeons. Then after 2 months of having that, they just took it away. So half of these videos were made thinking it was just going to be a permanent thing. Luckily for BFA, the time walking rotation going back to normal is going to help the dungeon rating a bit, as I am looking at these dungeons in moderation. Whenever I grade them, I assume it is paired with questing and has a decently long queue. In fact, I actually met someone questing in BFA while on my journey. They complained to me about the long queue times as a DPS. When taken with scarcity in mind, Battle for Azeroth has okay leveling dungeons. Things like the Prison, Freehold, Waycrest Manor are all pretty decent. Thankfully, Siege of Boredom is not in the leveling dungeon pool. Ironically, the repeatability of these dungeons has gone down compared to Legion. They leaned a bit too hard into the M+ design this time around. This is going to be a trend with the next expansions too. As M+ continued to evolve, the dungeons made for them kept getting more and more complicated and wacky. Things like the Vol'dun dungeon's orb carrying room and its healer boss that takes so long if you have a high level healer due to the scaling issues, or the maze in Miss Saturnus Scythe, and now the flight path dungeon of the Onaran Plains, both of which won't count against BFA, obviously, but it is a trend of these dungeons flat out becoming less leveling friendly. It's an afterthought. I'm not saying Blizzard needs to change how they make dungeons just so that they are better for leveling after the expansion is already over. After all, we have Chromie time and the choice not to do them. But at the same time, exactly, we have the choice not to do them, and I'm going to keep that in mind for these videos. The BFA dungeon experience is a 5 out of 10. It has either dungeons that work okay as leveling experiences, or dungeons that just don't work for leveling. There is not a single one that I can point to and go, oh yeah, that is a good dungeon to run alongside your questing. The closest I can say is Freehold. That has the closest to good leveling dungeon quality as it gets, but it's just downhill from there. It's not looking so good for BFA, to be honest. Is there any redeeming quality here? Any reason at all to choose it as a leveling expansion? We still have one section to go before the overall rating, so let's see if it can be saved by. I briefly mentioned it in the questing experience, but BFA does actually have the best treasure chest system in World of Warcraft. It was clearly too good, however, as they haven't done it like them since. I do love that they were marked on the map with a decently long detection range. You can just fly around and find them all pretty easily. It also helps that they have set locations and respawn daily, with the majority of them reappearing each day. As I mentioned, most of them give really good XP, about half a quest worth. You can even make it a full quest worth with rested XP, because for some reason, they are boosted by that in the same way mobs are, doubling the experience they give per opening when rested. For that reason, BFA is the best rested XP leveling expansion. All you have to do is log in, fly around, and collect chest after chest, getting a literal quest worth of XP in a short amount of time. I use these in my exploration leveling before Earthen were out, so I can actually speak from experience that it is pretty good when you are rested. It takes about 20 minutes to half an hour to get all the chests in one go, which is pretty good, but that's where the goodness ends. Even the chests don't go without their downsides. The majority give good XP, yes, but some randomly don't give any at all, while others give so little it's more insulting than if they just gave 0. All the treasure does mean that BFA is pretty good gold generation. I had around 5,000 gold when I hit level 50. Some expansions would give me 5,000 gold when I hit level 70. Bravo, BFA. And yes, I am stalling. Look, I need something positive to talk about. Its gearing is not good. It's not just not good, it's pretty bad. In my absolutely joyous questing journey through BFA, I ended up with a wonderful 287 item level, unironically the worst so far. Once again, I am more disappointed than I thought I would be. Legion gave me hope that even if it was a shadow of the performance it gave in this section, it would be pretty good, but it is a far cry from that. I can't even have one positive section about BFA, and I am actively trying to. I hate being so negative about something. It hurts my soul, as if being negative darkens it in some kind of way. Even in cases like this, where the negativity is 100% deserved. The gearing experience in BFA is a 4 out of 10. The chests are really fun and interesting. It adds an element that is lacking in other expansions, but not all the chests work the same way. If they all gave the same amount of XP, this would be a perfect questing companion. This series was supposed to be why you should level through these expansions, a positive leaning critique and evaluation of what WoW has to offer. I can't believe BFA is making me even a single percentage point excited for Shadowlands, my mortal enemy. No. BFA can't be worse than Shadowlands. It can't be. Whatever you do, stay away from BFA, at least until I assess Shadowlands. I need to see if it really is the worst leveling expansions, or if my suspicions of the dark times are correct. How about this? This video has been too negative. Let's cleanse ourselves by hitting that like button. Yeah? Maybe even subscribe. I'm gonna give the overall experience of BFA a 4 out of 10, but we'll see if that ends up being the worst. Next time, we talk about Shadowlands. With a story so bad, Blizzard have completely ignored it after the expansion was done. Surely BFA can't be the worst, right? We'll have to see. My name has been Kale. Have a wonderful journey, just not through BFA.